Ever thought about what goes into getting like everything a company needs? And I'm talking about everything from those tiny paper clips to, the high-tech stuff we all rely on. Well, today, get ready, because we're doing a deep dive into the world of purchasing managers.
They're the behind-the-scenes heroes of procurement.
Yeah,
People don't realize how complex and rewarding this field really is.
absolutely. So we're going deep with these RoleCatcher career guides to uncover what it really takes to be a purchasing manager. We're talking skills, career paths, even some of those potential downsides. We're going to lay it all out there so you can see if this is the career path you've been searching for.
Let's jump right in.
Okay, so first things first, when we hear purchasing manager, we all kind of think, oh, they just buy stuff, right?
Right.
But it's so much more than that. I mean, they're not just clicking add to cart all day. They're the ones out there battling to secure the absolute best deals on literally everything a company needs to survive.
And what's crazy is the range of industries they work in. I mean, imagine the difference between a purchasing manager for a meat packing plant versus one for, like, a huge tech company. Totally different ballgame.
Completely. So this isn't your typical one-size-fits-all kind of career, which is really cool. There's probably a perfect niche out there for everyone. And speaking of niches, one thing that really surprised me was this whole world of sustainable sourcing. It's like the ethical, eco-friendly side of procurement, which I found fascinating.
Yeah, and it's becoming huge. With all the focus on sustainability, companies need purchasing managers who get it. Finding those ethically sourced materials, reducing their carbon footprint, it's a whole new ballgame.
And it's not your grandma's procurement department anymore. Speaking of which, RoleCatcher doesn't sugarcoat things. They describe a purchasing manager's day-to-day as pretty intense. It's this constant balancing act between analytical thinking and serious people skills. Imagine, just for a second, you're a junior purchasing officer,
Okay.
and you're tasked with finding a new supplier for office chairs. Sounds easy enough, right?
You'd think so.
Right. But then you realize you have to factor in comfort, durability, price, maybe even if the company has sustainability goals and you're juggling deadlines and stakeholders are breathing down your neck.
Oh, yeah, it can get pretty high pressure, that's for sure. Those negotiations can make or break a deal. And those deals, they directly impact a company's bottom line. I'm talking about whether they're in the black or in the red. That's why technology's become so important. Like e-procurement systems and data analytics, they're not just buzzwords anymore. They're essential tools. It's not just about haggling anymore. It's about crunching those numbers, analyzing that data, and using it to make those smart decisions.
So what you're saying is, if I'm terrified of spreadsheets, this might not be the career path for me.
Well, let's just say, being tech-savvy is non-negotiable these days. AI, global supply chains, it's all connected. And you know what else stood out to me in RoleCatcher's guide? Certifications. Specifically, the COSM and CPM, that certified professional in supply management and certified purchasing manager. These aren't just pieces of paper. They're proof that you know your stuff. And employers, they take notice.
Okay, so it's like leveling up in a video game, but for your career. We've just scratched the surface here, folks. Up next, we're going even deeper into the nitty-gritty of a purchasing manager's daily grind. And RoleCatcher gave us some great real-world examples to work with.
Absolutely. And one that comes to mind is negotiating with a supplier for like a big electronics company. Imagine trying to get the best possible price on thousands and thousands of microchips.
Oh, yeah. Those are some high stakes.
It's high pressure, for sure. And RoleCatcher really highlighted how important data analytics are in those situations. Purchasing managers are using data to analyze those market trends, compare different suppliers. It's wild.
It's like being an economic detective.
Exactly. And all those skills, they take time to develop. RoleCatcher laid out this really clear progression path. Yep. Like, you start with entry-level positions, like a purchasing assistant.
Okay.
And at that level, you're doing the groundwork. We're talking market research, putting together those purchase orders. It's all about learning the ropes.
Right. You've got to start somewhere.
Exactly. But then you move up. Right, you become a junior purchasing officer, and that's where things get interesting.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you start getting a taste of those high-pressure negotiations, figuring out which suppliers are the real deal. The decisions you make start having a real impact.
And hopefully you're racking up some wins along the way.
Right, but then it's on to the big leagues. Senior purchasing officer, now you're talking about strategy. Big picture procurement strategies, managing how those suppliers are performing, keeping the whole operation running smoothly.
That sounds like a whole other level of responsibility.
It is. And those certifications we talked about earlier, the CPSM and the CPM, they can really give you a leg up at that level. RoleCatcher actually had some data on this. It was pretty interesting. So they found that purchasing managers in the tech industry who have their CPSM certification, they're earning, on average, 15% more than those who don't have it.
Wow, 15%. That's huge. So it's not just a piece of paper. It's like a signal to employers that you have that deep knowledge, that expertise.
Exactly. It shows you're serious, committed to your career, always learning, and that's something employers really value, especially in a field like this.
It makes sense. You're making decisions that affect a company's bottom line. They need to know they can trust your judgment.
Right. And that becomes even more important as you move into that coveted purchasing manager role. Because now you're leading a team, developing those strategic plans. Your work has a direct impact on a company's profitability.
Okay, so now we're talking big pressure. That sounds exhilarating and terrifying all at the same time.
It definitely takes a certain kind of person. But if you can handle the pressure, if you love the thrill of, like, closing a deal, and if you're passionate about always learning, always improving, honestly, this could be the perfect career. And that actually brings up something that really stuck with me as I was going through these
Oh,
insights.
yeah. What's that?
This idea of why.
Hmm.
Like, why choose this career path?
Hmm.
Because RoleCatcher, they focus a lot on the skills, the tasks, which is important.
Yeah.
But it got me thinking about that bigger picture.
Totally. It's one thing to understand the what of a job, but the why, that's what really drives us.
Right. And I feel like that's something we always try to do on this show, to really dig into those deeper questions.
Exactly. So for anyone listening who's thinking, hey, this purchasing manager thing, maybe it's for me, let's take a minute and think about the impact you can make in this role.
Because it's not just about those numbers, those contracts. It's about making a difference.
Exactly. So we've talked about the technical skills, the career path, but what about aligning this career with your values?
And that's where things get really interesting. Imagine you're passionate about sustainability, right? You could find a role where you're the one sourcing those ethically produced materials, reducing your company's footprint on the planet.
Hmm.
It's not just a job at that point, it's a purpose.
That's so powerful. And with so many companies focusing on ethical sourcing these days, it sounds like the opportunities are really growing.
They are. And it's not just about the environment either. You could find a company that aligns with your values on social issues, fair labor practices, supporting local communities.
Hmm.
The possibilities are out there.
It's all about finding that sweet spot where your skills and your passions intersect, right? And that actually leads perfectly into my final thought for everyone today. As you think about your career, think about the impact you want to have on the world. What kind of legacy do you want to build? Could this be the path to get you there?
Those are the questions right there. Because when we boil it all down, it's not just about what you buy for a living. It's about why you buy it. What kind of impact are you making?
So well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of purchasing managers. We've covered a lot today. From, those first impressions of purchasing managers to like the nitty-gritty of what they really do. It's pretty amazing how much goes into it. The strategy, the data, those high-pressure negotiations, and then that whole idea of making a real impact. That's huge.
Definitely not what most people picture when they think of procurement.
Not at all. So for anyone listening who's feeling fired up about this career path, maybe you're like dusting off the resume or looking into those certifications, what's your number one piece of advice for them? What do they really need to know?
Don't be afraid to dive in.
Mhm.
Seriously, be curious. Always be learning because this industry, it's constantly changing. You got to be ready to adapt.
And don't be afraid to reach out to people already in the field. Networking can be a game changer.
Oh, 100%.
Mm.
Go to those industry events, find some online groups, connect with people on LinkedIn. You'll be surprised by how much you can learn just from talking to people.
It's all about building those relationships, finding those mentors who can guide you. Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of purchasing managers. It's been a fascinating journey. Hopefully, you listening out there have a better understanding of what it takes to succeed in this field. And hey, maybe we've even inspired a few of you to consider this career path. Remember, this is just the beginning. We've got tons of resources for you in the show notes, links to everything we talked about, plus some bonus material we didn't have time for. So keep that curiosity going, keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep diving deep. Until next time.